Hello, welcome to this masterclass, which is around tenant engagement during retrofit programs. My name is Josh Arthur, and I lead on energy and sustainability for Gravesham Borough Council's housing stock, and I am the project manager for the Wave 1 delivery. I'll give you a bit of background to Gravesham Borough Council. A bit about our Wave 1 retrofit project, some of the challenges we experienced with the delivery of our project, and some advice around resident engagement, as well as some solutions to how to deal with tenant refusals. So, introduction to Gravesham. So, the borough of Gravesham is made up of two towns, Gravesend and Northfleet, and the surrounding villages. We have a housing stock of around 5,700, which is quite an even mix of flats and houses. We declared a climate emergency in 2019. We have quite a testing net zero target of 2030. An energy and sustainability team were created towards the end of 2021 to lead on the delivery of our retrofit programs. Prior to this, we had no previous large-scale energy retrofit programs. So our Wave 1 bid. So our Wave 1 bid consisted of retrofitting 473 homes with loft and cavity wall insulation and the appropriate ventilation measures. We modelled our bids and programme of properties using the parity portfolio system, which allowed us to identify our worst performing properties that requires these measures. All the properties were initially rated EPC D, and they all reached EPC C following the completion of the works. A dedicated project team was established, including a council-employed resident liaison officer, responsible for providing engagement and support for our residents throughout our project. So straight into resident engagement. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about some advice in terms of delivering your project, some of the challenges that we faced and some solutions to refusals. So starting off with challenges. So we had issues around access from an early stage in relation to surveys and retrofit assessments. And these were really for a variety of reasons, sort of consisting of missed appointments, incorrect contact details that we may hold on our housing system, or just general refusals from the outset of people that just didn't want any work done or anyone in their homes. We also saw a large number of resident refusals around the actual work. So they'd allow us to do the initial surveys, but when it actually comes to work, they refused. Quite a lot of these were around ventilation. People just didn't want it done. They didn't want the trunking that's associated with extractor fans. They were worried about potential drafts, things like that. We also had people that just generally didn't want the upheaval and the disruption that having that work would have on them. And also we saw refusals because of wider issues, so things like outstanding complaints relating to repairs or any tenancy issues, and effectively they made it very clear that until that issue is sorted, they had no intention of allowing us to carry out this retrofit work. Another big problem for us, because we were delivering loft insulation, is that we were finding that lofts were full of items, making it really difficult at both survey and installation stage. But it is really important that these are identified at a really early stage of your projects, and ensure you make allowance where required to assist the tenants that need it. We found quite a lot of people used this as a good opportunity to have a sort out, so they'd actually but obviously there are going to be tenants who cannot do that, and will require support. So it is important that you make allowance for that to facilitate the install. And yet sort of what I've just mentioned about sort of vulnerable and elderly tenants who may need further support, it's really important that if you can identify these at a really early stage of your project and make allowance for that. So some advice around resident engagement. So from a very early stage of your project, it's really important to implement a resident engagement strategy, very specific to not just your program and the work you're delivering, but the properties you're delivering it to, and ensure it outlines how you will communicate with your residents from the early stage of prior to the works commencing, right through to handover and completion, and the aftercare support that you will provide following the completion of the measures. Identify properties that you know will be very hard to access. So, you know, you should have this information quite readily available from people that routinely refuse or do not provide access for things like gas servicing and other compliance functions. It's probably quite likely they will either completely ignore your request to gain access for this work or completely refuse it. So look at your program and identify these properties early on. And if you can, engage with other teams, so teams like tenancy management help you in terms of getting in as well. Where possible, it's not always possible, but look at what other works are due for the properties that are in your program. Have you got things like kitchens and bathrooms, windows, things like that? We've found that tenants are more likely to allow us in if they've got things like kitchens and bathrooms that are due, things that people generally just more interested in having done to their homes. And again, we sort of cross-referenced our planned works programs at a very early stage of the project and identified properties that do have other planned maintenance due. Really important to keep it simple. So avoid confusing technical language, things like PAS 2035. You know, things like that mean something to us, people that work in the industry, but for a resident, they may not necessarily understand what this means and the importance around it. So try and keep the communications you have with your tenants really simple, explain the outcomes and the benefits, and yeah. Identify any tenants that you may be aware of that are just not free during the week, whether that's, you know, because they've got certain working patterns, and see what you can do, you know, to facilitate surveys and installs. Can you provide them with weekend appointments or evening appointments? We've had quite a lot on our program who just generally are not available during the week, and our contract has been really accommodating to make sure that we can provide alternative appointments. Another piece of advice which we've from our sort of lessons learned is include properties that you are aware of having outstanding damp and mold cases, and you know, could the issue around damp and mold be the lack of insulation or correct ventilation? And actually including them within your program could be a good news story, because you know it's a good way of tackling you know, high volumes of damp and mold if you think that could be the contributing factor. We've done quite a lot of that. We work very closely with our responsive repairs team, analysing cases of damp and mold, and any that we feel could benefit from this program have been included. So solutions to refusals. Identify why the tenant is refusing. This is really important. Is it part of a bigger problem? As I mentioned, have they got outstanding repairs? Is it cases of hoarding? Have they got issues currently in relation to rent or tenancy issues? I think sometimes it's really easy to say this tenant is just refusing, but you need to know why. Is it just generally because they don't want the work done, or is there a wider issue? Can your contractor or delivery partner be more accommodating? As I said, about providing things like flexible appointments or providing assistance to facilitate the install. Outcomes and benefits of the retrofit program. You know, it's so important these are communicated to tenants. If they understand what the benefit is to them for having this work done, people are keen to just suffer the upheaval that 2 or 3 days or potentially longer of people working in their home if they know the outcome for them at the end. Any tenants that have had the work done, see if you can get them on board to promote this to their neighbours and other people on the estate, and see if they'll be interested in talking to other people that are in your program. Sharing experiences is a really good way of encouraging other people to go ahead with the work. We've seen that as well, where shared experiences can really get another tenant on board, whereas previously they may have refused it or they may have been skeptical about it. And then lastly, obviously you don't want to get to this point, but if a resident does continue to refuse, it's so important that you ensure the refusal is logged, and a communication is given to the tenant to outline the refusal, because if you get any complaints or disrepair claims further down the line, you can prove you tried to carry out the insulation and ventilation work, and the refusals have effectively come from that. So thank you for that. I hope that was useful. I'm really happy if anyone wants to contact me to find out any more about the delivery of our program, and also really keen to hear from other people as well. If you've got any other suggestions around engagement, then yeah, please just drop me a line. Thank you.